Hello chess lovers, welcome to our channel. Today I will have a show together with Thomas Engqvist, and in my chess collection I have a book about Fabiano Caruana, one of the contenders in the coming candidate final next year. And he is a very interesting player, and this book, which I show you now, is written by Grandmaster Alexander Kalinin, a Grandmaster from Russia, who was teaching Fabiano when he was very young and learning a lot of good things in chess. Fabiano, he started to play chess when he was very young, and when he was about 14, 16 years old, he was already racing to the stars, American Grandmaster. And in this book, it contains two parts. And the first part is about his history, racing start, vertical takeoff, the calm before the storm, the ascent to Mount Olympus, historical how he raced to be one of the 3-4 strongest grandmasters in the world. The second part is from chapter 5 to chapter 12, and in chapter 5 he's showing attacking the enemy king, some games of that. In chapter 6, centralization as a weapon. And in chapter 7, attacking on the queen side and playing on two flanks in chapter 8. And chapter 9, defense and counterattack. And one of the famous endgames in modern time, the Berlin endgame, in chapter 10. He tells all about it. In chapter 11, he shows some of his combination games outstanding, the Dortmund pearls, and in the last chapter 12 he talks about queen sacrifices. He made some queen sacrifices in his games, which are very, very impressive. There is about 62 games, and all of them are commented in this book, and very fascinating to read. My associate Thomas Engqvist will now show a game in this book, an attacking game on the king side, when the black has castled king side, and he will show it now. Welcome, please.
Thank you, Björn. Yeah, that is what I'm going to do. Show how to attack when the king has castled on the king side. And this is not so easy. It was actually Alexander Alekhine who first showed chess players how to do it in different ways. But this is not what we're going to talk about this time. We will concentrate on the game between Caruana and the Swedish strong grandmaster Emanuel Berg. The game was played in the Olympiad in Dresden 2008. At the time, Caruana's ELO was 26-14 and Emanuel Berg had 24-28. Caruana opened with e4 and Berg opened with his favorite defense, the French defense. He has written several books about this very interesting opening. It has been played by strong players like, for example, Korchnoi, Ullman, Bagadian. It's a very interesting defense. At this juncture, there are several options, for example, Vinava defense. But we will focus on the Rubinstein variation, where he releases the tension in the center. And black challenged the knight on e4, so they are disappearing from the board. The queenside knight becomes the kingside knight. And this is an interesting position, because here Caruana played the natural development move, bishop d3. Another move which is also playable is bishop c4. However, what is interesting is that Capablanca had this position 3 times in his career. One was in a classical game, and the 2 other times was in simultaneous exhibitions. He preferred this move. This is not a development move, so what is he doing? You can call it a prophylactic move, emphasizing planning in the game, that the opening is like a middle game. So this is a more advanced approach how to relate to the opening. But the main idea is to prevent the development of the c8 bishop to b7, because now white would have this strong reply. So the move played by Caruana could be said to be inspired by Morphy, who believed very much in development, especially when the position is open. Now we can talk about a half-open situation, and then it's also possible to maneuver like Capablanca did. But this was the move that Caruana played. The drawback is obviously that the d4 pawn is slightly weakened, so black profits from that by attacking it immediately with his c pawn. So those pawns disappear from the board, while helping black to develop his pieces on c5. But as we will see, the bishop will not stay on c5 for a long time. And here came queen e2. So here it seems that Caruana is preparing to castle on the queen side. So here I have to reach the h8 rook to make castling on the king side. So now we can see that white's king's position is very safe. The h7 pawn is defended by the knight on f6. The f7 pawn is defended by the rook on f8. The g7 pawn is the weakest spot in that position, but how should you attack it? And black also has an extra pawn on e6, which blocks the classical diagonal running from a2 to g8. So this is hard to get a safer king position than this, and still Caruana managed to break through in the spirit of Alekhine. So what happened? We will continue to see. In former times, the most common move here was bishop g5, obviously preparing for castling long, casting on the queen side. But it has been discovered that after h6, bishop d2, e5, white has to be careful of e4 here, so black has enough counterplay. So that is the reason this is not the most popular move. Anyway, the reason that Caruana didn't play. So Caruana played this seemingly quiet move. So white is slightly ahead in development here. Black must try to catch up. So white develops his rook before black develops his rook on a8. In this position, it seems very natural to take the knight on f6. Caruana did not play this move. Here it's not so easy to exploit the h7 pawn and the half-open g5. So what white should do in such a position is to eliminate black's bishop here by playing bishop e4. But black's position would be fine after rook f d8. And the reason is that the rooks will most probably be exchanged here, and also the white square bishops. So we will probably be left with the material queen, knight versus queen and bishop. But the knight is not especially strong here because the f6 pawn takes away important squares. So white's dream would be to exchange the queens as well, because then white would have some practical winning chances, as Reshevsky has shown in a famous game. We will not go into that. We will instead see what Caruana played, because he didn't play these simplifying moves. So he went for knight e5. So now he's playing what Capablanca played much earlier in the game, knight e5. So here the knight is exceptionally strong. It was actually Labourdonnais who first realized the strength of such a knight, and later on Pillsbury repeated this idea, but then the knight was defended by pawns on d4 and f4. And the reason the knight on e5 is so strong is because of the pressure on f7. So black played rook fd8, and the main idea is to also to give the king a flying square on f8. If a queen should come to h7 sometime in the future, which might very well happen in such a structure. So here, Capablanca played this very interesting move. It makes me think about players such as Tarrasch and Morphy. Tarrasch could play such a move, and also Morphy, for example, against Anderson. So the idea here is to prepare to develop the rook on f1 with f4 to f5, which is a very crucial break black must try to avoid. So in this position, black decided that he doesn't want to think about the possible capture on f6 anymore. So he played bishop e7. But now we can see an immediate drawback. The f7 pawn has suddenly become weak because, as we saw here, the queen is defending the f7 pawn. So black never has to worry about knight takes f7. But in this position, black must be careful, because after rook f to e1, notice that Caruana changed his plan now. He didn't play f4, f5. Now he's focusing on the pawn couple f7 and e6. So black has to defend against this. So he plays this move. And here it's important to note that now knight takes f7 would be a mistake, because black has a clever move here. Can you see that move? So why don't you turn the bottom and think for a few minutes? So what is black's best move in this position? Do you know that, Björn?
Yeah, I think I know it already, because white's attack has not got through yet, so black can make a counter attack on the g2 spots and play queen to c6, and that's a deadly threat against mate on g2. And I don't think that white can parry it in time.
Yeah, it's impossible to parry queen to g2 mate as well as king takes.
So black will probably be better than.
Yeah, so this is what white should avoid. But here we can see that white must also be careful, because this move is essentially a decentralizing move. I mean, now the queen can't go here. So, and this is white's tactical weakness. So he didn't play that. Instead, he has to continue bishop h4. And black persists in harassing the bishop on h4. and white moves it to g3. And black tries to neutralize it with bishop d6. But here white has the possibility to put pressure on the b1 h7 diagonal, and the knight must go back. This is a very good place for the kingside knight because it controls central squares as well as the kingside. But now the queen has managed to maneuver via the fourth rank to the kingside. So this is an interesting position, and black's position is objectively okay, but surprisingly the Swedish Grandmaster made a huge mistake here. So what do you say? What should black play here?
Well, as long as black protects the f7 spot with his queen, black should try to higher the pressure on the queen side, because white can't come through on the king side yet because f7 is protected. So rook 8 to c8 would be a good choice to try to higher the pressure on the queen side for black.
Yeah, this is actually the normal move.
I think it would be quite even, or a teeny bit better for white, for instance. I think so.
Yeah, white is maybe a little bit more active, but black's position are perfectly placed here. They are well centralized and all pieces are developed, and black's king side is pretty safe here. But surprisingly, this did not happen. Instead, black played this move, and now I want you to turn off the video clip and think for yourself a few minutes. How did Caruana continue?
I could say also that black has all his pieces on the queen side, and white has almost all the pieces on the king side, so that should give some signal.
Absolutely. White has piece concentration on the king side. So yeah, we can smell there is something here. And I assume some of you have seen the decisive move, which is knight takes f7, exclamation mark. Because in one way I can understand that Berg didn't see this combination or underestimated it, because after king takes f7, which is the normal move, white cannot play queen takes h6 check. But he has another surprising move, rook takes e6. This might be what Alexander overlooked. So it's a magnet sacrifice. First you forces the king to move to f7, now you forces the king to move to e6. But black cannot take this second sacrifice due to bishop c4, and black will soon be mate. But still, in this position, black is a piece up and white has 2 pawns. So
there is another way as well
to take the rook. Yeah.
There is another way as well, as white can attack after. No, well, I am a bit too early. Sorry. Go on, Thomas.
Oh, you mean in this position? There is another way white can attack.
I thought about queen to h5, but perhaps it's not. No, queen to h5 for white, check. Black can play king to f8, and that will protect the position
king f8
satisfactorily.
Oh, you mean like that? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you are right.
Yes. So king to f8 after queen h5, king to f8. I think black can protect the position
Yeah, because after king g8, this could happen.
Yeah, that's not the right move.
Yeah, bishop a7 check. So just like Björn said,
King to f8
if you
and
do king f8,
black stays safe, I think.
it's less clear, right?
Sorry, I just interrupted.
Yeah, but this is an interesting variation, because if you go here, then you can just sacrifice or check.
Right.
That would win.
But king f8 and save the day.
Anyway, okay, that might be the reason Caruana did not play queen h5 check, because of king f8. So rook takes e6 is
That's the best.
more precise, as it also threatens the bishop on d6. So black cannot take the rook with the king, as we said before, because of bishop c4 check. But what he could have done, according to Kalinin in this book, this should have been the best move. But of course, white is winning after such a sequence, queen h1,
Yes.
because he has a very dangerous attack on the king. So bishop takes e5 will follow. But that was the best chance. Instead, Berg went to another square. So he preferred to play knight c5, but this is a worse move, because now you can take the bishop with the rook, black takes back, and queen f4 check. And obviously black has to defend the rook now, because if it moves to g8, white will just capture the rook on d6 and be 2 pawns up. So this should be the only interesting move. But then rook e1 will follow, king d7, and here bishop b5 check. So even the Spanish diagonal is involved here. It's interesting to see how the bishop on d3 works on this diagonal, it even works on the classical diagonal, and now even on the Spanish diagonal. So it's a very flexible bishop. This was actually Fischer's favorite piece.
Yes.
So bishop c6. Yeah, and now queen f5 check. So black puts a knight on e6. And white now recaptures all the material with a lot of interest. So this was the final move in the game.
Yeah. Now it's Oshiro because of bishop to c6 check.
Yeah. And what happens after this?
Rook to e1 check.
Yeah, it's a discovery.
Discover attack. Very nice. No, very nice. No.
Yeah. So it's very interesting that the end might have been something like this. So white sacrificed first a knight and then a rook, but now he's a piece up because
that's Oshiro. Yes.
of the undeveloped rook on a8. So this is a very instructive game, how to attack when the king has castled kingside, in the spirit of Alekhine. Also Botvinnik has played a little bit in the same way with an isolated pawn in a game against Riedmar, which is very famous. So by studying such games, and this is only one of many games in this book, so when he's talking about how to attack the king, it's very interesting that he used the same structure as Alexander Kalinin did in the book I talked about yesterday, The Art of Winning, the art of middlegame in chess. It's called The Art of Winning in chess in Swedish. The structure was how to attack the uncastled king, how to attack the king that castles on the queen side, and now how to attack the king that castles on the king side. So that is a good structure to learn how to attack the king, and it's especially how to attack the king that has castled king side, which you should focus on, because that is the most common in practice. So I certainly recommend this book.